everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I've got a holiday giveaway coming out next week on the email list. For those of you who don't know what next week is, because this is on YouTube, today's December 3rd, alright? So the week of December 7th, I'll be making an announcement through my email list, so make sure you go to the blog, theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and sign up. It's free, right? And you maybe want to win a $50 gift or so. So I've got 10 of those that I'll randomly be giving away. So today, and I haven't done one of these in a really long time, a long form video where I just kind of batch a bunch of questions I get together and create a long video / podcast. So this one is especially good for my fans who are listening on Stitcher or on iTunes. I know I haven't been doing that much stuff on there. I've been doing like one of these long ones every month or so. However, I don't think I got one in November, and I apologize to you guys on Stitcher and iTunes. I know some of you guys don't watch YouTube. You prefer to listen to me in the car. I get that. I listen to some podcasts only in the car rather than watching on YouTube, just because it adds some value to your drive home or maybe your workout at the gym, whatever it may be. I appreciate the fact that you're listening or watching, however it is that you're consuming the content. I appreciate it. So I've batched a bunch of questions together. Anyone can send me a question, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. You can also call or text me, 949-415-6256, and I'll get back to all of you guys, and also all the social media networks. Snapchat and Instagram are my two favorites, but I'm always on Twitter, I'm always on LinkedIn. Facebook's good too, so whatever you prefer, I'll be on there. And let me just get back to one of my coordinators. Alright, so, first question, alright? Do you work with Google AdWords, Google Analytics, Keyword Planner? Do you have someone in-house working on this, or do you outsource to a third-party company? Same rationale on SEO and website design. So, in this context, this person's referring to, how do I run my Google ad campaigns for my clinics? Do I do that myself? Do I outsource it? And again, the answer is going to be different for every site depending on what stage you are in the life of your site. All right? If you're a brand new site, funds are extremely tight unless you have investors or you have deep pockets where you can hire professionals to do this for you. You're going to have to roll up your sleeves, right, and do it yourself, which is what I did when I started my sites. So as far as Google Ads, I still manage most of my site's campaigns myself, Google Ads. Actually, my firm, I have a consulting company where, in addition to getting studies for sites and finding PIs, we do a lot of recruitment for study participants for our studies and for other sites' studies. So I do leverage that infrastructure a lot, but the practical answer for you is you need to learn how to do it unless you have deep pockets and can pay someone else to do it. Once you get your clinic profitable and it's just not efficient for you to be spending your time running Google ad campaigns when you could be out getting more studies, or maybe just managing the protocols for the study participants that you already have, whatever your strength is, you ultimately need to focus on your strength. But at the beginning, you definitely have to do it all, unless, of course, again, you have deep pockets, which would mean you're extremely lucky. But I still recommend you do it yourself, because you need to learn the job responsibilities for every single position in your site if you're the owner, in order for you to be able to properly hire people to do these for you, to write SOPs for people to be doing this for your site, and just to manage them as the company evolves and grows over time. So doing it yourself is the best. It's not the most time efficient, obviously, but what you're doing is you're investing that time in order to not only save money in the early years of your company, but to gain knowledge, gain the necessary knowledge and expertise that you need in order to write your SOPs and in order to hire the right people to eventually do this for you. Because ultimately, there's no doubt and there's no denying the fact that we should all be focusing on our strengths. There's a really good book, I don't have it out here, but I read it, called The One Thing, written by Gary Keller, he founded Keller Williams. For those of you who know me well, I'm also a realtor, so I work for Keller Williams as well. In The One Thing, he talks about just focusing on that one thing that you do best and that you need to do every day to generate the most results for you, and everything else you need to outsource. But in the clinical research setting, and in any setting, in any industry, there's no way you can properly outsource and properly delegate duties to other staff members who are going to be working underneath you without having some concept of what it is that the job responsibilities entail and the functions of that role are. So in this case, when it comes to running a Google AdWords campaign, yes, you can hire companies that do that for you. Yes, you can hire somebody in-house to do this for you and train them, but you really need to know how to do it yourself in order to properly do that and to properly manage. You don't have to do a great job at it, you just have to know the concept, right? You have to understand the concept. A perfect example, and this is a great segue into your next question about website design and search engine optimization. I can do it. It takes me much longer to design a website than a professional website designer, and it does not look anywhere nearly as good as a website designer. But I understand the process, and when I do need to hire people, and I have hired people to make websites look better or the search engine optimization to be better, I know exactly what I need and what I want, and I know the time involved, because if I can spend 8 hours and put together a decent website, there's no way a professional can put up a decent website in the same amount of time. I would expect them to put it up in like an hour or two. So if they're charging me 8 hours, I know there's something funny going on there. And without me having done this myself, I wouldn't know, and I wouldn't be able to call them out on it, or I wouldn't be able to properly train someone to do that. You gotta know all aspects of your business. You don't have to be an expert at every aspect of your business, but you have to have your hands involved in everything, especially early on, so that then you can learn what your weaknesses are, what you're not so good at, and then hire people there and focus on your strengths. And that's the goal. So next question. The overhead policy. Now we're going into contracts and budgets, right? So the overhead policy, is this considered the startup cost? No. Okay, overhead is a line item, just like any other line item, usually on the bottom of the budget. So you'll have your schedule of assessments at each visit, and then you'll have a dollar amount for every assessment, right, and for every visit. At the bottom of all this, once all those things are added up, then you have an overhead, right? Some sites don't charge overhead. I think that's really foolish. Other sites charge 10%. Other sites take what the sponsor gives them without negotiating, which, by the way, do not do. Give me a call. I have overhead policy wording I'll give to you. I ask for 40% overhead, all right? You may not always get that. Sometimes you'll get 30, sometimes you'll get 25, but don't take 0 or 10 or 15, right? Charge what's reasonable for your site. So no, the startup cost is not overhead. Startup cost reimburses you for the time it would take to train the staff on the protocol, to create the source documents, to attend the investigator meetings, the time it takes to get up and running before you get your SIB, okay? So, in the policy, in the overhead policy, would you have it itemized showing your calculations, audit fee, retained staff, source document change, reconsent patient, or a one-liner? So for audit fees, you would have a one-liner in the contract or in the budget for $1,500, right? And then source document creation and staff training is all part of the startup, so I don't have separate line items for that. What exactly is the overhead percentage based on? I have an entire policy that I wrote, or that I've actually collaborated with other sites on. So I wrote part of it, and let me pull it up here. Okay, give me a second. overhead policy wording. So, the objective of this policy is to compensate the site to cover the indirect costs incurred during the conduct of research. These costs include, but are not limited to, general infrastructure, utilities and space, the office of the research director, CEO, coordinator space, PI space, recruitment, and all other study-related space consumed for research purposes. This policy applies to all staff who negotiate research contracts. Then it goes into building, rent, maintenance and repair, cleaning, gas and electricity, water and sewer, trash, security systems, locks, keys, clinical labs and pharmacies, tools and equipment, purchase, depreciation, calibration and maintenance, supplies such as alcohol wipes, band-aids, dry ice, disposal of sharps and biological waste, thermometers and batteries, uncompensated medical care, furniture and equipment, desks, filing cabinets, copiers, scanners, computer hardware, software, telephone, fax, office supplies, food and beverage, postage and courier service, internet connection and email, websites, record storage, which I've done a long video on, by the way. We need to start charging more for that. Cell phone, then it gets into study personnel, employee benefits, support time, staff meetings, reporting, communications, trainings, professional licenses, certification. There's all kinds of stuff. If you want the wording, email me, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and I'll send it to you. But yeah, that's what overhead entails. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Next question. So you guys have been sending good questions. Thank you for that. I was wondering if you can study a case of a new drug with development performed in emerging countries and the way it's obtained marketing authorization in US or Europe. Part of the globalization process, I was wondering if drugs developed in emerging countries can obtain FDA or EMA approval. If yes, what are the conditions? So yes, they do. I don't know the details, but they do if they want to sell their drug in the United States. Like, happens all the time in Japan. Otsuka, Takeda, all the big ones. They're foreign companies. They want to sell their product in the United States. It's still the biggest market in the world. So they got to do trials in the United States, and they got to go through the FDA process. And same thing if they want to do it in Europe. So same process, although sponsors from Europe tend to have slightly different requirements, especially when it comes to archiving records. I think they want like 15 or 30 years. This Monday, for those of you watching in real time, this Monday I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Ibbs from drugdev.org, and I'm going to actually ask him this question. Hey Dan, I'm a fan of your YouTube videos, and I know you said to reach out. Yeah, so anyone can do this, by the way. So I have a question regarding Phase 4 study budgets and CTAs. What are some of the invoiceable items that I can include for Phase 4 studies besides archiving fee? Can I charge for protocol amendment fee? What else can I possibly add to increase the budget? For this particular study, the overhead is supposedly included in the per patient payments. Can I add anything more for overhead? Let me answer that one first. Yes. All right. Send them the policy that you have. If you don't have one, email me. I'll give you kind of some guidelines for what you can ask for. Okay, we need to work as research clinics to increase our overhead and the quality of our budgets, especially in a time period like right now where study supply is relatively low and demand for studies, meaning there's a lot of sites out there competing for the same studies, is at an all-time high. And it looks like 2016 is going to be much like 2015. Unfortunately, I think things are going to be relatively slow, or the same as they have been, until the election. And I'm not going to get into politics, but that's going to definitely play a big role in study activity going forward. But 2016, expect more like 2015, right? Just the way it is, guys. Don't hate me. Don't shoot the messenger. Although I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't look like it. All right, so Phase 4 studies, Phase 4 studies. They are a great way for inexperienced PIs to get their first start in research. And after that, you want to get into Phase 2 and 3 and possibly Phase 1 studies, because Phase 4 studies suck, all right? other than the fact that they typically are the first studies a PI will ever do, they're horrible. Budgets are awful. I don't even consider them studies. When we get phase 4 studies at our sites, I don't even count. I don't even count the budgets for those studies into our overall budgets for our sites. Of course, we technically do, but when we're doing our planning, I don't factor in those budgets. Whatever we make from those studies is just icing on the cake. We might give employees a bonus or like improve the site, improve the equipment. We don't rely on that money from these phase 4 studies because they're not good. With that being said, you can make good money if that's your only study that you have. If your overhead is relatively low and you're doing most of the work, and it is possible in a phase 4 study for the PI to do all the work without a coordinator because they're relatively simple. But on the opposite side of that coin, the fact that they're simple means that the budgets are not that good. So I don't like those studies, but I know that's not what you asked. So any ways to improve these budgets? Archiving fee, $2,000 is really good. Depends on how long they ask you to store these records for. If it's for 5 years, it's okay. Actually, let me see, because what you want to aim for is like $20 a month, $30 if you can, $30 or $20 a month per storage cost. So 5 years is going to be 60 months. So let's see what that would be. 60 months times $20, $1,200. So you got 2,000. So you're right around 8 years. So good. However, if you're required to keep them for 30 years, not so good. You need to charge more. Okay. Use the formula $20 a month in your when negotiating. You may not always get that, but you can't predict what inflation's gonna be. I mean, look at our economy. Look at the price of a gallon of milk, okay, and then compare that to the price of a gallon of milk 10 years ago. Same thing with storage. Whatever the cost that you're paying now, 10 years from now, is gonna be a lot higher. Okay, so factor that into the equation as well. Can I charge for protocol amendment fee? Yes, you can. $250. I would do actually 1,000, right? Because you're gonna have to reconsent everybody, and in a phase 4 study, that's really annoying, especially if you're a high volume site. Okay, so phase 4 studies, they're good because they get your PI some experience, and you can start adding some studies to their resume. But they're bad because they're not really real studies, and you can't really count on those budgets to sustain a legit business. But it's how a lot of sites got their start. It's how I got my first start in research. I was the coordinator for a phase 4 study. The PI, who was my dad, was a PI part-time, like really part-time. He had a busy private practice. He told me, and I don't think he knew how much the budget was, because it may not be good for you and I now as adults, but as a college kid, that was good money, right? So usually they pay like $2,000 per completed patient. I don't think my dad realized the budget, or he didn't really care. He said I can keep all of it. He just wanted me to learn the process of clinical research. And I went to town on that study, right? So it's all relative. They're good budgets, but they could be really good for some people and lousy for someone else. But at the time, they're good. So phase 4 studies are cool, but it really depends on what stage you are in the life cycle of your business, right? We still do phase 4 studies all the time. They're great also for training new staff. So if you brought in a new coordinator with relatively little experience, it's a pretty good way to get them their first experience as well. So look at it as like getting paid to train somebody on a study, okay? Another question. Dan, great job on the videos. I love it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have a strange situation. One of the investigators is the PI of a study at his own clinic. With his staff workload, they can only manage 20 subjects. He has many more subjects and wants to enroll them at our research site. He is the sub-I on other studies at our site. Since we already have a PI at our site for the same study, Can we add him as a sub-buy for the study? The sponsor doesn't allow satellite sites. Yes, you can. It's done all the time. A satellite site means that the one PI is the PI of another site. So one PI, two sites. That's a satellite site. In your situation, I do this all the time. I have one PI at one site. That PI is a sub-buy for another PI at another site. Maybe because the sponsor liked my PI and was not so sure about this other PI, but they were willing to give us the study because our PI would be a sub-buy for that study as well, right? And you can have that be the case under either the same company, so both sites can be owned by the same company, or both sites can be owned by different companies. It doesn't matter, whatever type of situation you've set up. I've done it both ways before. It makes a lot of sense. It gives the inexperienced PI an experienced sub-investigator to consult with them or to recruit patients, as in this case, and it just makes good business sense, right? So yes, it's done all the time. Request it. You may get some resistance initially, just because some of these people at sponsors and CROs don't know how to really think outside the box, and they need to get approval from somebody else, and then usually that person will say, of course, let them do this. It makes sense. So yeah, let me know how that works out. If you have issues with that, I can probably try to help out, okay? So that's all the questions for today. Maybe it's not as long as I thought, like 30 minutes, but it's still good. Thank you for sticking around, and if you stayed till this long, first of all, thank you. If you want me to send you, and I'm just coming up with this spontaneously, any one of these books, since you've stayed till the end, and for those of you listening, you can participate too. This one's Peter Lynch, Beating the Street. If you want this book, or if you want Moonshot, all right, written by John Scully, or if you want Meditations, all right, email me, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Put in the subject line, Clippers will win the 2016 NBA championship. And you don't even have to write me anything, but I'd appreciate hearing something from you. And I will select 3 of you at random to get one of these books, okay? So put down which book you want, and that's like a little special Easter egg / treat for those of you who stuck around till the end, all right? Thank you very much for watching. This is Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Give me a call or text anytime, 949-415-6256. And by the way, when you send those emails, send it to dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Okay? Again, Peter Lynch, Beating the Street, John Scully, Moonshot, Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. And I'm not going to buy you a fresh book. I'm just going to give you the book that I read. Right? Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.